Welcome to the Overcoming Adversity podcast. I'm your host, Michael Allison. Remember, it's all about a transformational growth and a resilient mindset. My guest today is Howie Disavino. He's a NASCAR race car driver who's been through his own fair share of adversities in life, and he's here to tell us all about his story. I can't wait to get into this conversation. Hey, Howie, how you doing, man?
Hey, Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for jumping on the show, man. I appreciate you being a guest here, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Hey, man. So you're the first NASCAR driver that I ever had on my podcast to interview. So I have so much stories to ask you because I see cars go around in circles all the time. I'm fascinated by fast cars and stuff like that. Now I have a professional to ask about that. So, man, let's get into it, bro.
Absolutely.
Man, tell me, man, what made you decide to get into NASCAR racing at such a young age, man? Tell me a little bit about that, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's something different getting into it so young, but a lot of people, I got in when I was 13 years old, and that's not usual. Usually, a lot of these kids get in when they're 4 years old.
He wasn't even legal to get a license yet, so go ahead.
No, exactly. But I mean, that's the thing about it. So a lot of kids start when they're like 4 years old in go-karts. And so I grew up on a farm in Chesterfield, Virginia, and I always had a dirt bike, a four-wheeler, and I love motors. And I told my dad one time, I said, hey, let's go to a NASCAR race at Richmond Raceway. He said, all right, let's do it. So we walked up. I saw these small little stock cars. My dad, I'm going to be a NASCAR driver one day at 8 years old. And you know how dads are. He chuckled, and he was like, yeah, sure, buddy. And we joke about it to this day because we made it happen, and we're certainly blessed.
Man, that's amazing, man. I love to hear the fact that you spoke something into existence and actually see it to come to fruition is actually amazing. It's a testament to like how much committed you were, how much resolve you had, and then the dedication that you had to pursuing all of your dreams, man. Can you tell me a little bit, what was that driving factor that you had, where that came from, man? Because not everybody have that where they just stick to something. A lot of people switch a lot of things in life. They make decisions here and they change it, the decision here and change it. What was that for you?
So, I mean, when we got our first car and I was testing it out, going around these small tracks, you kind of get that little itch, and then makes you think, okay, well, if I could do this, I could hop into a bigger car. I can get into the next series up, and that's exactly what happened. So after arena racing, I hopped into a late model stock car, like I went from 22 horsepower to 450. So it was a big difference. And so when I went to late model stock cars, that's when it really started to get serious. And I was like, okay, I want to do this for a living, and this is what I want to make money doing. Because right. I'm a person that if I don't enjoy what I'm doing, then why am I doing it, essentially? Right. If I could race for free, I would do it. But, there's bills to be paid. So gotcha. That's kind of the way that it kind of happened, is that I wouldn't even say it's not a hobby. It's a obsession. I'm obsessed with the adrenaline and throwing a car into a corner going 185 miles an hour.
Let me ask you this then, man, because you started at this young age, and obviously now your career and it's your passion, as you just mentioned. But I'm one to start thinking, all right, what were like your neighborhood friends or your classmates and all these people that you were surrounded by? Or if you have siblings, what was that like? What was those dynamics like?
Yeah, so my siblings were extremely, supportive. They got made. My number was 55, and so they got little tattoos that they would put on their cheeks. They would always have a 55 on their shirt. They loved it. I mean, show up to the racetrack, bring us pizza because we're all hungry. Stuff like that. So my family was always very, very supportive. Now, when you get to the friends, that's where you kind of had to pick and weave on who was your friend at such a young age. You would have some that were jealous because you were off doing this stuff, which is, that's normal. That's human nature. But then you had the really supportive ones and the ones that want to be your friend. You know what I mean? So a lot of my classmates, everyone knew me as the race car kid. No one knew my actual name. They just knew me as the race car kid, especially my high school. So it's something different.
Man, so you grew up in Virginia, right? And you're racing. And now we just spoke about your friends and your siblings, right? But now I'm gonna think that mom and dad is a factor because your dad took you at a young age, right? And then you developed that love. Can you talk a little bit about the support or the influence that your parents had on your life while you was coming up, man, being a NASCAR driver?
Absolutely. My dad, very, very supportive. He's more the nervous one than my mom. My mom would sit and be calm throughout the whole race because she knew that I knew what I was doing. But my dad, he's the guy that's, like shaking, watching every lap, turning around, but without the resources that my parents gave me, I want to be able to do what I do. It takes a lot of capital to start a race team, and it takes a lot of money just to get to where I'm at now. So they were very, very supportive from the start. Now, when I was 8 years old and said that I want to hop into a race car, it took me 4 years of begging to get into the race. So we had to prove that it was a lot more safe than what everyone originally thinks it is.
So, having this amount of success at such a young age, some people may look at it as like, how did all this happen? I want to also touch on something, having success does come with adversities in life, which is what this show is about. Did you face any adversities or any challenges while you were getting into the NASCAR space?
Oh, yeah. When I was 15 years old, I was a freshman in high school. My mother got diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. And, at 15 years old, that's a hard pill to swallow. Right. And so I raced throughout this whole deal, season to season. She would go through chemo and she would come out to the racetrack that Friday still, and she would just support me. My mom never missed a race of mine. But when I got to NASCAR, I moved down to North Carolina when I was 19 years old. And I was in between races. I was in between Bristol and Vegas. And I went home and my mom made me a elaborate dinner. And that Monday, I ended up getting sick. And that was the last Monday that she ever walked. And so it was one of those tough things because ever since I was 15, I slowly watched her degrade a lot. And basically in front of my eyes, watch her pass away every day, which is a tough deal at such a young age. But to finish that story off, I went downstairs and everyone was like, "Hey, you have Bristol like this week. Like you got to get down to Carolina." I'm like, "Oh man." My mom at this point, she hasn't eaten for 46 days, barely drinking water because she was just holding on. At this point, she had 14 brain tumors because it's spread from ovarian to brain tumors. And she couldn't really talk, but I went in there to say my final goodbye to her. I said, "Hey, Mom, I love you, and this and that." And she turned around, and I mean, the good Lord knows this. She turned around, looked at me, and said, "I love you too, son. Pass them all." And of course, I got a little emotional, walking out. Drove down there. I raced that Thursday. Saturday, she passed away. So that's the last thing that my mother ever told me was pass them all. So I have that actually tattooed over my heart. That's my team slogan now. And that's what we do now is we try to go out there and pass them all.
Howie, man, your story is truly inspirational, and to have you talk about it now, obviously it's years later, man. Can you tell me, bro, obviously that's your mom, right? I love my mom to pieces. Where did you come up or muster that enough courage to even get in that car, man? Where did you get that?
That week wasn't that bad because I thought she was going to hold out till I got home. The bad part was she passed away Saturday and I had to race in Las Vegas the next Saturday. So a week after she passed away, I was racing again. That race was hard. because my old team owner, Jordan Anderson Racing, when I was racing trucks, he did something special. He took my name off of the passenger side the door and put my mom's name, and
Nice.
so she would have that final ride. So it was something a little different, showing up, a lot of the guys in the garage, they'll walk up, give me a hug. Hey man, we're thinking about you. We're glad that you're here doing what you love. And they would all tell me, hey man, pass them all, and that's kind of the mindset of, we set out to do this, but I know that my mother wanted me to run those 2 races no matter what, because that's what she told me. No matter what happens, I want you to run these races.
Wow.
So it was tough. It was definitely tough.
I could imagine, man. So, when I think of racing cars and people going around, it's for me, I imagine it takes lots of endurance.
Mm-hmm.
So can you speak to our listeners in regards to what does it take to actually become a NASCAR drivers? Because I've heard you also just mention that you went from different levels within the race car and space. So can you tell us, what is it like? What do you have to go through? What is a day-to-day like? What does training look like when it comes to doing this sport? Because we see it when we see baseball players, we see it when we see football players, those types of athletes, right? So if you could tell us a little bit bring us into your world, man. What is it like?
Well, the biggest thing that a lot of people don't know about NASCAR, it's not free. It's not like the NFL to where you get pulled up. You have to pay to play, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's not a cheap ordeal. And so that's why a lot of us drivers, if we don't have family money, we have to go find partners and sponsors.
Right.
And so when it comes, so we have a business side to this racing deal.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes down to, racing wise, you have to have it in your heart, but you cannot be emotional on the racetrack. That's the number one rule.
What do you mean by that?
If somebody, rattles your cage a little bit, hits you, you can't get mad. I mean, you just have to understand that you're racing. It happens. You move on from it. But there's multiple times out of a lot of drivers, I'm fault of this, to where I'll go back and tap them too. But it just comes into a factor of you can't be emotional on the racetrack. You have to race your race and act like no one else is there, essentially. When it comes down to the conditioning part, big shout out to Hunter Smith and Fifth Stop Performance, because that guy right there has turned me into a complete different person. We are very, very big on cardio. I started training with him before my first truck race, and in my first truck race with 50 to go, I had my power steering go out. It's extremely hard to turn a 3,600 pound car at 160 miles an hour into a corner. And for 50 laps, I drove it. And I called him after. Well, when I say I called him, I had someone hold the phone to my ear because my triceps were so done. And I said, hey, what we're doing is working. So, cardio is huge. You have to learn how to breathe inside the race car. It gets hot in there. I mean, it's at least 130 degrees for 3 hours. You're basically sitting in a sauna. So you have to eat.
You're probably burning some major calories while you're doing this then.
Oh, well, usually, I mean, most of the time I burn about 10 pounds off each race.
Wow.
And that's water weight a lot of times.
Wow.
So, heat training's huge. I have a sauna that I go to. I sit in there for about 45 minutes, especially with it being winter, especially up here. It feels good during the winter, but during the summer, it sucks. And, we do weight training, just the regular splits, chest, tries, stuff like that. But he trains us like a NASCAR driver should be trained. It's not, we're not in there to get big and bulky. We're just in there to maintain the race car.
So when it comes to racing, you said, like, just going back to the story about your mom, like you just raced a couple of days and the next week you had another race. So how does it work from the racing or the business aspects of things? So I could understand that a little bit better too as well. And I say that because baseball players play every 2 to 3 days. Basketball players do the same thing. Football players play weekly. How does it go for a race car?
Usually, it just is week to week, depending on the series. Now, like the truck series, sometimes they take 2 weeks off because it's only 23 races instead of 36.
I see.
So you get to take a few weeks off. But when it comes down to the business aspect of it, Monday through Thursday you were grinding. I mean, you are sending out emails, making things happen, phone calls, everything, and then after that you just go racing.
That was my point of asking that question. So from the business aspects of things, how are you guys being able to maintain a full team to run it like a business? So how do you guys figure out or strategize who do we need to partner with? Who do we need to bring in on our teams to keep this thing running so we could be successful? Because it sounds like race car is also a little bit seasonal to it as well.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes down to like my business with my team, so I own no cars at all. I don't own a hauler, none of that. So my team is like a free agent in football, and we go find that team that has the cars, the hauler, all that, and we rent them out.
I see.
And so when I say my team, it's a like I'm my board of advisors for my business side, but then I will go to a team and say, hey, I want to do this race, and this race, or we'll do a full season. And that's how that package works.
I see. That's very smart, man. I like the concept in regards to building your brand and stuff like that. I want to touch on something, man. I know it's a true passion of yours, and I already know why. But if you could share with our audience, how do you and your team give back in regards to like being charitable with things that means the deepest to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are tied in with the Travis Mills Foundation. For anyone that doesn't know the Travis Mills Foundation, it's a beautiful organization up in Maine. It recalibrates wounded veterans, whether it's mentally or physically, which touches heavy on my heart. I grew up in a military family. My father, my grandfather, my mom's father. We that touches heavy on us, and to give back to such a great organization means a whole lot. The Ask Childhood Cancer Foundation, we give back to that a lot. I give back to a lot of cancer foundations as well, just because of everything that happened with my mother, and would love to see more people not be sick. That's the biggest thing is I go after things that or out foundations that touches my heart a lot.
I love that, man. I obviously that I'm a veteran, as we were speaking earlier, and I love the fact that someone coming from humble beginnings as yourself, but someone that has been through the experiences that you've been through, figured out a way or navigated a way to get tied to a cause that means so deep to you, because it means much more whenever things are done that way, man. So I applaud you for doing that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
So let's hop into this race car here. What would you say has been one of the most significant races that you've been in, and what were some of the lessons that you learned from being in this particular race that you were in?
There's a whole lot of them. It really, I mean, I could go to Las Vegas in trucks with the week after my mom passed away. I learned a lot about myself, just that race.
What did you learn about yourself during that race?
Even though I'm hurt, you got to keep pushing forward, and going out there, and people were the broadcast actually did a 53-second video on me and shared my story online.
Wow.
It was pretty awesome. But people were calling me, crying, and I'm like, hey, I'm in a race car. Like, I don't have my phone on me, so I can't answer the phone. But I think the biggest thing was, every time you hop into a race car, you learn something different about how the car works, how it turns, how to be faster coming off the corners, whatever it is. But from a mental standpoint, racing's all mental. It really is. It's physical too, but a lot of it's mental. It's like a chess game. You have to carefully place that piece somewhere. And that was probably my biggest learning moment of, wow, like I'm mentally strong enough to make it through this race, 150 miles of racing, and after that race, I had people questioning me, afterwards about sharing the story. So, the whole night was just draining, and even that whole week was draining too. So it was that's probably my most memorable race that I've had ever. I mean, I've had stories about every race I've been in. I can remember every single race I've been in, but that's probably the most that I figured out about myself was how strong you have to be to move forward.
I was going to ask you, man. So whenever Howie's feeling either down, depressed, or just having one of those mental types of days, and he's going through it, or he's, experiencing a hard time, how do you handle like your mental health? Is it do you even have people that's in your corner, like mentors, coaches, accountability partners, or is it your faith? What is it? How do you get through your tough situations?
I mean, I've struggled with faith a little bit, going through everything that I've gone through. And I mean, sometimes I'll pick up the Bible. I mean, that's one way to find a verse that, just touches my heart. That's how I do it. Sometimes, other times I just put it strictly into my work, just firing out emails as fast as possible. Other times I go to the gym. It really it just depends if I'm angry or whatever it is. But I have a lot of mentors, and big shout out to them because they've heard a lot of stories from me. And it's just one of those deals to where, I'll have that person to talk to no matter what. But I would prefer to put it into something that can help my future out. So that's
Absolutely.
why I usually just work through it.
I got you, man. So looking ahead, man, you've accomplished so much, right? But there's a longer road ahead, man. What are some of like your goals and aspirations for yourself in the future?
I would just want to be a Cup Series driver full time, and eventually have a family, and hopefully little Howie the fourth hops into a race car.
Well, obviously, I'm going to pray for that, man. Whatever you speak, I hope it just comes into existence for you, man. For our
Absolutely.
listeners, man, that's listening to your story, right? You're someone that obviously came up in the race car game at a young age, but you went through a traumatic experience of losing your mom, and you had to deal with that and face that. Face with numerous other challenges too along the way while you're racing. Can you just talk to our audience and leave them with some just some words of wisdom or encouragement based on some of the things and life experiences that you had yourself, man?
I would say, the biggest thing that I learned was keep your circle small and make sure the people you have around you are there for you. That's the one thing that I've learned throughout this time period. Whenever life gets hard, you just got to keep pushing through it. I know a lot of days just, some of them just suck. You just have to keep going through it. It's okay to have somebody to talk to. You can always hit me up on Instagram, whatever. I'll always answer. But the biggest thing is just to keep going no matter what. And the biggest thing is you are always young enough to start something new. Go chase your dreams. If you want to start a business and you're 45, go start that business. You're always young enough to start something new. And I pray for success for everyone. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I want to see everyone succeed. So that's my inspiration. But definitely just keep grinding. That's all it is.
Absolutely, man. I love the fact where you said, man, keep your circle small and just be around people that's your trusted advisors and people that's going to hold you accountable and responsible, and that's there for you for the right reasons. I think so many times where a lot of people in this world get caught up with some of the outside distractions and then fall victim to some of these superficial sort of things in this world and thinks that's what life or what real relationships are really about. And I love the fact that you've already identified that, man. So
Well,
absolutely agree with you, bro.
it's just the core reason of everyone knows who you are, right?
Right.
I know the real me, and you know the real you. Just stay true to yourself, and just have that mentality of if this person's not in my corner, that's fine. I'm still going to pray for success for you, but we don't need to be in the same room.
Right.
And that's just the way it is. And my father taught me that a long time ago. So big shout out to him.
Speaking of that, man, I love the fact where you're truly authentic. How has your faith or your support around you been an impact to your success, man?
It's been a huge factor. You know, prayers have been answered. You know, and we're working through some prayers right now. You know, my support system is huge. I have, you know, my sister, my family, and you know, it just, you know, they all come down to, they all believe in me and they all tell me that. And the day that they say, hey, I don't think that this is right, you know, I'll listen and I'll say, okay, well, I think it is, and keep pushing forward. And that's the biggest thing, is even having friends. You know, all of my friends, hey man, they all call me, hey man, what's going on? I'm like, hey, what's going on? And they always say, hey, what's going on in the business world? I'm like, hey, it's going good. We're trying to figure some things out. And they always go, hey, I'm praying for you. And so, you know, having that type of friend, that friendship, the mentorship, my board of advisories, they are great guys. You know, Taylor, you know, having all those people that are in your corner and that want to see you succeed is going to be the key factor of how you succeed. Because we can do it alone. That's no problem.
Right.
But having those people that you've identified as real to you, that's what's going to help you out.
I agree with you, man. Hey, Howie, if anybody wanted to get you on their podcast, get you for a speaking engagement, or just work with you, how can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook as Howie Disavino. It's all one word. My website is www.howiedisavino.com. So just reach out and we'll have a conversation soon.
Absolutely. Well, Howard, man, it's been a pleasure to have you on the Overcoming Adversity podcast as a guest, man. Your story is truly inspirational. I know that it's going to make an impact to our listeners, brother. So thank you so much for being a guest, man.
Well, thank you so much, Michael, for having me on, and everyone have a great day. And I'll be praying for success for everyone.
Absolutely. Until next time, guys, God bless. Make sure you leave a message and share this episode with a friend or a family member.
Can't complain at all. Couple dollars in my pocket, know it come and go. Been working on my body, getting healthier. Thank God for clarity.